You can't make it home after missing your target and then go back to the bar and hang out with the
Right.
bros and the gals, you know?
I mean, you can, and I've missed plenty of targets. I missed one target in combat. We used to make fun of JDAM. That was the new thing.
Yep.
Where you didn't have to do this amazing thing where you had to like laze a weapon in. You just had to make sure the coordinates were good and then hit the button. It was south of Baghdad early in the conflict, and I remember I had 2 dimpies. As I'm coming off target, I'm staying visual, doing my job at night. I'm like, I cannot believe I did the thing that I made fun of everyone for. I didn't step the goddamn thing and go to the next target. So I totally missed my second target. I remember rolling in with my crappy lantern pod, convinced that there was a revetment with a AAA, like a towed artillery piece in it. And my flight lead, Sai, was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Pretty sure one. I think so." And I'm just like, I got these GWOT 12s. I want to roll in and do it. And I was convinced I saw it. It's a blob because lantern pod, everything was a blob. And I rolled in, and sure enough, in the laser leg, I'm like, "That's dirt." I blew up the dirt.
Tower 26 is release you, runway 4 left, 040 at 5, clear for takeoff.
Seat tied, altimeter 0 eyes, we're clear for takeoff, clear for the airspace. Viper check 2. Observation Viper running 2A. My right ramp curve was at 354. So yeah, flights on. Next picture, 16, 15,000, target, something like that. Viper 1 target.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Afterburn Podcast. I'm Flash McVay. I'm here with an incredible guest today, probably one of the most, in my opinion, well-known Air Force pilots, not only for being an incredible fighter pilot and tactician, but also for his outside of the military activities, Colonel Retired Trip Raymond. So boss, I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Great to be here, Flash. I would disagree with some of what you said, but looking forward to talking to you, and really cool to be here. Love the podcast.
Oh no, and I love that we're doing this in your bar. It's going to be appropriate for a lot of our conversation today. So, this is cool. We got to overlap a couple times in a couple different spots in our career. One in Korea and then one at Shaw. But as we kind of kick this off, just tell us about yourself. No threatening. I'm not going to tell you to sit down. But how did you get involved in joining the Air Force, commissioning, and just kind of walk us through your career, some of the highlights, some of the lowlights on kind of start to finish and kind of what you're doing now.
You bet. So I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and honestly, the military was not in my cross-check at all. I didn't really have anyone in the family that was in the military. I did have an uncle who had his private pilot license, and he took me up once or twice, and I loved that. But beyond that, it was not even something I ever considered. Even going to air shows, I was like, that's pretty cool. It's neat that some people get to do that aren't from outside of Philadelphia. So I had every intention of just being an engineer. And I went to college, went to Boston University. And right before I went there for my freshman year, I got a letter in the mail from Air Force ROTC. And I looked at the letter and I said, well, that sounds interesting. I wonder if maybe they pay for college. Maybe it's just something interesting I should try. So the message to all the recruiters out there is don't give up on just letters and sending them to people, because it worked on me. I showed up that summer and I was like, this seems cool. I like the people. I like what we're doing. I'm learning about airplanes. And it took about 3 weeks before someone said, hey, you know that senior? He's about to go to pilot training and go fly planes. I was like, wait, you could do that? You do that in ROTC? And then I was like, so you guys would like send me through college and then send me to pilot training and I could go be a pilot and a fighter pilot on top of that? I thought it was crazy. And then they're like, oh yeah, and you should probably apply for a scholarship and then we'll just like pay for everything. So I was completely, I fell into it entirely. And the more I learned about the culture and flying in general and just the profession of arms, I just fell in love with it and kind of became probably obsessed with it, and did well enough to get the pilot slot and went to Shepherd for Euranato ENJJPT and got my first choice out of there, which was the mighty F-16.
That's right. That's funny because we've had some recent interviews about just people getting into the military, the different paths of getting in, both going to the Air Force Academy, going to ROTC, UPT hires kind of straight out the street, and the diversity of how to get into the military has been actually pretty incredible to see, especially coming from a side where I'm currently at, sitting in the reserve, kind of in the reserve role. So awesome.
Well,
so go Terriers. But
yeah, thanks. Yeah, they're nasty little dogs. What I, to your point about the reserves and all the different ways to get in, I again had no idea until pilot training that some people just partied for 4 years entirely and went to the same place after a few months of the officer training school. We're in the same spot. I did know that there was an Air Force Academy and that probably sucked pretty bad compared to what I was doing. But when you all show up at pilot training, it was really neat. Just everybody, it was like a clean slate, and
100%.
You were judged by your performance, how well you could fly the airplane, how well you could study and remember things and act on your feet. And I was fortunate to make it through that with a few scars, but nothing too bad. And I mean, every day I couldn't believe that I was getting paid to fly airplanes. It's just so crazy to me coming from where I came from. Yeah.
Yeah. So why the Viper? Like, at what point in your path did you decide, one, I want to be a fighter pilot, and then two, I want that, and I want to go fast, and I want to fly BFM, and I want to do all the things that the Viper does? Was there another love that you had, or was it Viper all the time?
Well, I mean, probably what motivated you to transition to the Viper was probably when you saw Iron Eagle, and that's of course what happened with me too. No, honestly, it came down to the instructors that I flew with and asking them about all the missions that they flew. Initially, I was thinking it would be really cool to fly Strike Eagles because I liked the fact that you do both missions. And of course, I was influenced by Top Gun and thought it'd be pretty cool to have like my partner, Wizzo or whatever. And then I really learned about how much I loved flying solo. No offense to crewed airplanes, but the freedom and kind of the ability to just make decisions and do it on your own or within a formation. I just fell in love with that. I like the kind of it's not isolation, but I just enjoyed being kind of one with the airplane. And when I learned that you could do that in an F-16 and do every mission, the more I learned about the cool missions that you could do in the F-16, I was hooked. And this was like 2000 timeframe. So a lot of the instructors were still coming from the old days of the F-16, where they were doing just bananas kind of things in the F-16, right?
Yep.
Low level TFR pop, loft and LTV, lays it and at night, like crazy stuff, no NVGs. I mean, that just it really intrigued me. I liked the adventure of it. I thought it was super cool that they were Vipers all over the world. The bases were amazing that you could go to. And so I picked it. And then my first assignment was Cannon Air Force Base.
I wasn't gonna say. I was like, oh, all these incredible places like Cannon Air Force Base, New Mexico.
And so I also like the challenge of, I don't know, it's single engine, single seat. You do all the missions. And I'd always heard from other platforms, you're kind of the jack of all trades, master of none. And we say that ourselves. And I think what I learned pretty quickly is that it's true for most folks, but there was always those people who were just fantastic in particular missions. And I always liked the idea that you could find your niche in that jet and really get amazing at certain things. And some people, not me, but some people were amazing at many things, right? They usually have like the black border patches and they fly at Nellis. But that was, I really liked that challenge. And the Viper folks that I talked to, they were just, I don't know, they were laid back, cool dudes and gals, and second only maybe to the A-10 community. And like the folks that roll up their sleeves and they're just like chilling and enjoy just flying and blowing things up.
It's like just hand on the belly, just kind of like laying back. Today we're going to talk about CAS. That's
right.
It's a little kindred spirit.
Yeah, haven't shaved in 3 days.
That's kind of, I still do that, but But yeah, so an amazing career, like as well. And like what you were talking about, how it all started. And then you went to, like, initially you talked about it, Cannon, which was around the 2001, 2002 through 3 timeframe, right around 9/11 when you were at Cannon. Was that correct?
So actually, right at the end of the B course, everyone's got their 9/11 story. Mine was, I was supposed to go in and fly that morning, and I'm listening to NPR or something on my drive, some talk radio thing on the way in, and they're talking about how a plane hit the tower. And of course, like most people, there were no visuals. I'm driving. I'm thinking, oh, maybe a Cessna just like ran into a building. And then I see the long line on Litchfield Avenue there outside of Luke. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And finally I make my way in, and we're all around like watching TV in the Squadron bar. I had maybe 3 more rides left till graduation. They delayed things for a few days because everything was shut down. And then we finished up, and we got, kicked out the door to the Combat Air Force, knowing we were going to war. We knew it. And folks had already been doing it by the time I got to Cannon. It was only a matter of getting through MQT and getting on that first deployment, which was, less than a year after I got there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, obviously coming in right away to the F-16 as a new conflict is kind of developing. And then your entire career spanned the global war on terror. So kind of talk us through, like, how did that impact, like, your kind of path throughout the whole thing? I mean, as for the listeners kind of out there, for Trip, as in going to Cannon, then going kind of being through just kind of the standard Viper career, but obviously more on the Weasel side of the house, which is a love of mine as well. And also a weapons officer, squadron commander, group commander, all these different things. But kind of walk us through, like, the evolution of your stages of career throughout, like, kind of the global war on terror kind of era, if you will.
Yeah, happy to. I hope it's interesting.
It is.
It's interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I'll correct one thing. I didn't get to the Wild Weasel until weapons school. I was Joe SEAD, as it turns out. So I was in the Block 40 Squadron at I know you were.
Yep.
At Cannon. And at the time, we had 2 Block 30 squadrons. We had the Block 40 Squadron, where I went to, the Hounds of Heaven, which is that squadron there, 524th Fighter Squadron. And then there was a foreign squadron there as well. So it was a full-up old-school fighter wing with 4 flying squadrons and the OSS in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico, near the border of Texas. But when I went there, I was pretty excited because I got to go to the modern Block 40 that had Lantern, and we were just getting NVGs, and we got to guide our bombs in instead of just rolling in out of Harbs and Haddabs. And we got to we had this amazing data link called IDT. It was like this amazing thing. So we were like at the cream of the crop there at Cannon Air Force Base at the time, until the Block 50s came in, and then we were the stepchildren. But before that happened, we got deployed for our normal rotation of Southern Watch. And our job, and one of the reasons why I am so impressed with young fighter pilots today, is I had to know like this many weapons, and all I had to do was stay visual. There were no data link really. I didn't have a HEMX or anything.
Yep.
Stay visual. Shoot who I tell you. You got to know about 5 weapons, a couple air to air, a few air to ground, and then you just got to stay in formation and stay visual. And then don't forget how to land and shoot and approach and all that stuff. Now it's just so complicated and impressive what we're able to do with young fighter pilots making decisions. But to go back to where I was, I mean, yeah, we didn't have to do much, but we had to do it really well. And I was able to get on that deployment. And my first exposure to combat was Operation Southern Watch, which had been going on for over really like a decade, out of Al Jaber Air Base in Kuwait. It was good living. It was supposed to be the standard 4-month deployment. We had like surf and turf night every other week. There was like Mongolian night. It was definitely, you couldn't drink booze, but it was definitely like a pretty cush place. You could go to a really nice gym. You could, I don't know. It was good. We had the Sand Trap, which was like our non-alcoholic O Club. out in the desert. It was a double wide trailer with nice couches and you could watch movies, whatever. So it sounds really great. And then it was pretty clear about a month into it that things were heating up. The Iraqis started shooting back a lot more. We started dropping more bombs on certain sites farther and farther north. They would call those response options or whatever. But I remember the first time we actually had to go north and just fly a route and not even like drop anything. And I'm a young wingman on a guy named Stump's Wing, who you probably know. And I just remember thinking, everyone's shooting at me all the time. It's daytime. And I'm checking 6, I'm checking out. I'm doing everything in 3-3 to make sure we don't get jumped by MiGs or shot by anything. We're at like 20,000 feet, 0.8 Mach. Everyone else is on autopilot. And I'm just like checking under my belly. And of course it's uneventful. But that was my first combat sortie where I actually went across the line. Uneventful. And of course I get made fun of for that. Like, what the hell are you doing out there? It's like, I was checking 6 and everything you taught me to do.
Doing everything you told me to do.
Everything. They're like, yeah, take it down a notch there, partner. And then you get kind of used to that thing. And then occasionally you get scrambled on the alert because someone took off from a plane and headed south, and you'd hope to get them on your crappy little Block 40 radar. And then they'd turn around, and then you turn around. So that was kind of it for a couple of months. And then things started to get real, and they started to build new parts of the runway and the ramp. They started to build new facilities, tent cities. A lot more airplanes started coming in, and we started flying a lot more. We plussed up our squadron, and that happened for about over the course of the first 4 months. We were supposed to come home, and we got extended, as you can imagine. So we ended up being tucked away, this little squadron of Block 40 F-16s that really wouldn't have been there if we hadn't already been there, because they would have brought in other aircraft. And my squadron commander Berge and Snort, our DO, I'm pretty sure they just like fought to keep us there. And it was awesome because we got to participate in night 1, shock and awe. And we went north. I was on Berge's wing and dropped bombs on bases that later would become places we would operate out of. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And got to see a lot of missiles, a lot of bullets fired our way. No MiGs, but other than the ones on the ground that they buried and we dropped bombs on. But it was a formative kind of thing for a young fighter pilot to go fly combat on night 1 and see just the eruption of anti-aircraft artillery and missiles and having to move the jet. And like, it was not, I'm not saying it was the Gulf War in any way. It wasn't even like Kosovo. There's very few guided things, but you shit yourself the first time you see stuff actually shot at you. And then it takes a while to get desensitized to that.
Yeah. And I will say, like, obviously recent events in the world of F-35 pilots and Viper pilots that are going back to the Middle East and things like that, is we haven't had a shooting war in a while. So any time that something actually shoots back is a significant emotional event. And a lot of people have not been around. Like, the majority of the humans in the squadron are actually where you were at your time. So it's an interesting thing to kind of be a part of here. Cause I mean, I'm sure your squadron had some folks that were still, obviously had folks that were left over from Allied Force, probably left over from Desert Storm, that at least could prepare you. Like, like you said, you were checking 6 every time you went north, rolling up. Like, did you feel prepared for that situation, or was it just a complete mess, like in your brain, and just kind of fall back on training?
I think actually it's a good point that you bring up. Like, the folks that raise you, some of the most important lessons that I learned were in the debrief after the ride was over, and you're just having a drink or you're in the bar and you're talking. They're telling you the war stories. A lot of my B course instructors were Gulf War pilots, and that was a real shooting war. Same with Kosovo. A lot of my F-16 instructors were captains their previous assignment was where they went and flew in Kosovo, and we lost airplanes. We shot down airplanes. We dropped a lot of bombs, and they showed me the targeting pod footage of all that stuff happening, things that they're lasing in and blowing up. I mean, that makes it very real, right? And I think certainly when you started in the A-10, I'm sure a lot of your instructors had similar experiences and got
100%.
shot up. shit, when I was there in OIF, that's when KC got shot up and
Yep.
had to land her jet all banged up, and that makes it real, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, none of us. It got real close. Like I can, to this day, I know exactly what it looks like to have an SA-2 blow up near you. But luckily, I was far enough away to where it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I was very, very lucky. But I would say to your question, like, was I ready for it? Yeah, I mean, it becomes muscle memory if your instruction is good and you have enough air under your butt and enough hours where you've seen enough things that get your heart rate up to where this is just another thing. You calmly collect and look at it and absorb it, and then you react, and then you try to sound super cool on the radio. And like, honestly, if you do all those things and you stay in formation and stay visual, you walk away doing your job, right?
It's generally going to work out.
Generally, yeah, and hit your target. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah,
yeah,
you gotta hit your target.
That's the one at the end of the day. It's just like you gotta make it home. Like, but you can't make it home after missing your target and then go back to the bar and hang out with the
Right.
bros and the gals. You know.
I mean, you can, and I've missed plenty of targets. I missed one target in combat. We used to make fun of JDAM. That was the new thing.
Yep.
Where you didn't have to do this amazing thing where you had to like laze a weapon in. You just had to make sure the coordinates were good and then hit the button. And it was south of Baghdad early in the conflict. The phase lines had not moved up yet. So there's still a super Miz and whatever. And I remember I had 2 Dimpies, and as I'm coming off target, I'm staying visual, doing my job at night. I'm like, I cannot believe I did the thing that I made fun of everyone for. I didn't step the goddamn thing and go to the next target. So I totally missed my second target. I remember rolling in with my crappy lantern pod, convinced that there was a revetment with a AAA, like a towed artillery piece in it. And my flight lead, Cy, was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Pretty sure, one. I think so." And I'm just like, I got these GWOT-12s. I want to roll in and do it. And I was convinced I saw it. It's a blob because lantern pod, everything was a blob. And I rolled in, and sure enough, in the laser leg, I'm like, "That's dirt." I blew up the dirt.
Hey, tactical dirt, tactical bushes. Those things all look the same in the lantern pod.
I like to think that, I suppressed their emotions or whatever. I don't know.
Terrain denial.
Terrain denial.
They don't get to use that again. So
it's deterrence.
It's a deterrence.
Tactical deterrence.
It's deterrence.
Yeah, sure.
It's deterrence. Well, no, that's awesome.
Well, most of the time, I was just going to say, most of the time we were lucky that the targets were pretty clear, ROE was pretty clear or very clear, and we were very conservative, and we wouldn't drop unless we were 100% sure. We would do all the things that you grew up doing as well in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria. All of the collateral damage was a big deal, and I don't remember if we called it that deployment. We certainly did the second time I went over, and I was flying out of a lot. But it would, all of those things was very disciplined, and there were a lot of airplanes and a lot of good guys and bad guys fighting it out on the ground. So that became a very formative experience for me as a fighter pilot, and I judged almost everything else based on that experience. And from flying combat, this is maybe trivial, but to me it wasn't. By the end of that conflict, there were times where there were a couple of days where we triple turned.
Yeah.
Clean the rails, did it. Boom, go again, land, go again. That happened, I think, 2 times. And you're walking out there with a helmet because we're in MOP 4 sometimes and you have to duck and cover because of the scuds. You have like this flak vest over all your flight gear. I had like you got your survival vest with your 9mm. You've got your bag, another bag with like all your combat stuff that you're stuffing into pockets, and a chem mask that I had to stuff somewhere. And I had like this quick draw radio because I was a Sandy back in the day. And I had all this crap. And I could step to a spare in like 5 minutes by then. And then, you get so used to it. By the time I got out and we got to fly back home, and it's like, oh, here's a BFM sortie. Go have fun. It's daytime. I'm just like totally naked. Like, what do I do for 15 minutes? I'm in the jet, ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it became super easy then to always, I was never stressed out by that first night of combat or whatever again, because I'd already kind of done it.
Yeah. And it at least how it was for me. Like and it's interesting. I've had some perspective from some of the guys that I interact with on a day-to-day basis that have now gone and done. We're kind of back in CENTCOM doing some things, but they've come back and they're a little bit later in their career. Some of them are weapons officers that it's their first time deploying for real, and they come back and they have that. But what I see is that first deployment is in fact a formative thing, that your entire career takes a different path afterwards. It's like if you just either you haven't done it, and I'm not saying that the folks that either have or haven't done it, it's all timing, and it's all timing. You never get to pick your generation of being a fighter pilot and what conflict we're a part of. So like anybody that was a fighter pilot without a conflict is not any less in my book or in my opinion. But it's just like, when they went and did that, they come back and they're a completely different pilot. And at least for me, when I got to do it as a lieutenant, it has in fact kind of given me perspective that I've taken through my entire career. And it sounds like it was the same way with you as well.
And yours was yours Afghanistan?
Yeah. Yep. Like right away.
Right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I never flew in Afghanistan, but I had one sortie I was supposed to go and the tanker fell out and we just didn't do it. No.
Yeah.
So I got 8 hours of my life back.
Well, it's like, it was also like kind of to your point is like going into they were shooting wars. Like Afghanistan wasn't necessarily a shooting war to the pilot. I mean, I've said it before on another podcast, but it was definitely a shooting war to the people we were supporting on the ground. And
that's what I was getting at.
It's just different. Yeah.
You had the life of a lot of people in your hands, and you had to make all the stories that I've heard and tapes that I've watched. I mean, not only are you worried about frat and saving folks that are yelling on the radio with good guys getting shot, there's terrain and weather and gas. It's a huge country. Like it actually makes a lot of what I've done in the other part of the AOR. It's just so different. And it's one regret I have that I never got the opportunity to serve there, but I'm super thankful for the folks who did.
Yeah.
Regardless of the ultimate outcome, which I can only imagine how everybody who served there must feel. But I mean, the work that was done there and the tactics that were developed really created a foundation for how we're going to fight those types of wars in the future.
I
maybe or maybe not. Depends how relevant it will be in the future. I believe it will always be relevant to be able to make those kinds of decisions, those kind of precise decisions when lives are on the line. That's always going to be.
Yeah. So kind of moving after that deployment. So kind of go back to, after that was, you went back to Luke as an instructor after Cannon, right?
Yeah. So I met my wife when I was in the B course, and then I got my first assignment. I was supposed to actually go to Spangdahlem, and she was like, "High five, we're going." And then they were like, "Yeah, you're not allowed to go there anymore." So I had to swap with someone, and the only one who would swap with me was the guy going to Cannon. So morale was low in the Tripp household for a little bit.
Yeah.
Meg stayed in Phoenix. I was in Cannon. It turned out to be, like I said, it couldn't have been better. The Hounds were like an amazing squadron, lifelong friends out of there. Started playing stupid, silly music out of there. And I mean, it was just fantastic. Our next assignment, I thought I was going to Korea. I volunteered to go to Korea. I said, Kunsan sounds amazing, or Osan. It sounds like something that every fighter pilot should do. I don't mind doing the Cancun tour. Like I want to do it. It sounds awesome. And I want to stay in the CAF, that kind of thing. And then they were like, no, we're going to send you back to Luke and you're going to be an instructor, which was great because that's where my wife was anyway. We're getting married anyway. So we bought a house and I just got to be an instructor at Luke for a few years. And that's probably where I really started considering, like, do I have what it takes to compete for weapons school? I wasn't sure. I had some amazing weapons officers that I knew I was not at their level. I mean, not being like humble bragging. I was like, those guys are amazing. Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Guys like Cy and Wilbur and Digger, like all these people. And then I went to Luke and I started to really get comfortable as an instructor, flying the Block 25, like radial TAC-N, DME, whatever, to stay in the airspace, geo references. you could only shoot and target one thing at one time with your crappy radar. Like, it was old school flying at its best, a lot of low levels, a lot of really fun stuff. And I got mentored by some in my IPUG and just flying the line by some pretty amazing leaders, patches and non-patches. And they urged me to give it a shot. So I really became passionate about that and tried really hard to make a name for myself and to do well in a wing at the time that I think there were 10 fighter squadrons there with a lot of folks. There was tons of competition there. And it took me a few tries. I was alternate a couple of times. And on my very last look, I was able to get selected to go to WIC, which was amazing.
How was your WIC experience?
Well, I was Joe SEAD, because pretty quick they said, well, now you get to go to Spangdahlem. I said, okay, I'm happy to go wherever. I had a kid at that time. We had our daughter. And at that time, I still said, I'll go to Korea if you want it, but there were no Korea slots in my weapons school class. So again, I volunteered twice, still didn't get the nod. And I was about to do it, because my wife was settled with the kid. Our family was in Phoenix. It was a good time to do it. Yeah. I said, nope, go to Germany. So I said, badass. Weapons school then took on a slightly different thing for me, as it probably did for you, going to Shaw as a new weapons officer. And I had to learn everything about SEAD that I used to make fun of when I was a bomb dropper, a tough bomb dropper. I'd make fun of the support asset, the SEAD guy. And I learned quickly that, that's like the hardest mission out there. Opposed SEAD, at least I was never a FAC-A. I've heard that's pretty tough too. But that is a really challenging mission, and I absolutely loved it. Yeah. I saw a lot of extras. But I learned a ton, and I was never a SEAD expert, I would say, although I was a weapons officer in a SEAD wing for a couple of years. I learned from flight leads, wingmen, old man strength, like all the patches, all the way up until the end where I left the community. I finally felt like I really knew what I was doing once I got the patch and I got over there and really got to sink my teeth into like the SEAD that is in the CAF. So I'll just say that weapons school was the most fun, incredible flying that I do in a 6-month period. It's just unbelievable.
It is. Yeah. I love that. It's not just me. It seems like it sounds like you had a similar experience. Like I was coming from the Hog and then Block 40, like going and being Joe SEAD and then trying to be credible at Shaw, where you're around all of these people that are so good. Like when I was even like the tier 1, like when I was leaving the tier 1 at Shaw, like you got a bunch of instructors that have been there for a long time, other weapons officers, little older weapons officers or anything like that. But just like the baseline, the line instructor pilot at Shaw, I was just like, you guys are really good at this. And again, I also love the mission as you know, but it wasn't just me that saw a bunch of triple X rides and and stuff like that. Company. We're in good company.
They crank out of that institution. They crank out incredible leaders, tacticians, folks who really do know how to deal with just agony and stress in a way that you never really experience out in the CAF or in other training that I've ever been on. And I say agony in air quotes, like it was the good kind, where you're like, that sucked. But I'm humbled that they hooked me on a ride where I had like 24 jets at my disposal, and they said, we're going to have you do that again. I'm like, that's amazing. That sucks, but thank you.
Yeah. It's like, I'm absolutely butchering this, but somebody gave me like the concept of like type 1, 2, and 3 fun, of like the fun that's like, this is not fun in the moment, but you look back on it and it was fun. And you're like, okay, type 3 fun is like nothing about this was fun, but at least it was rewarding or anything like that. Weapons school was a little bit of one of those for me, where I was just like, okay, there were times when it was very fun and there were times when it wasn't as fun, but it was definitely a rewarding experience. And I agree that it does produce some incredible tacticians and leaders like yourself. I got to serve under you and alongside you when you were, and then like kind of later on, you made it to Kunsan, by the way, everybody. Like edge of your seat, I'm sure. I was like, Tripp made it to Kunsan as the 80th Fighter Squadron commander, so to the GWOTs. I was up the road at Osan eating chilies But we were able to
Yeah,
party
we
a
go there
couple
on
times.
vacation every now and then.
Exactly. It's like find a way to have a lube low or something like that and divert up to Osan for Chili's. But
Yeah, right.
but yeah. So how was your like the two instances where, I mean, it was a very short amount of time at Shaw, but the two big command experience you had in your life? Kind of talk to me about being a commander both in Korea, kind of on the front line of the war that's still going on with the armistice. And then coming back and being like the group commander at Shaw towards the end of your career in a weasel wing, the largest weasel wing in the world. Do you have any good experiences, bad experiences, rewarding, or just lessons learned from some of those?
I have tons of lessons learned, and hopefully some actually that I've acted on and gotten better. I would say up to that point, I had been a weapons officer, tier 1, tier 2, and then I deployed again as a weapons officer, did a lot of CAS, not a lot of SEAD, even though I was in a Block 50. Unit. And then I went back to training. I did some Pentagon stuff and I got a little bit of broadening perspective, some school for a year. And then I got back into the airplane and realized that it comes back to you real quick when you take a break from flying for 3 years. I was a little worried about that. Not a concern. And then I went back to Luke and I was an OSS DO, which was really cool, broadening. Love working with the airmen and learning that business. So then I volunteered to go to Kunsan to be a commander. I actually didn't care which squadron because I didn't know the difference. All I'd ever heard were negative things about the other squadron. So as far as I was concerned, they're both equally good and equally bad. And they said, you're going to be the GWOT commander. And I said, cool. Who are they again? Which one? The 80th? And I finally learned that, they are superior. So I got to go there. And one of the really cool things was I got to be an instructor to a lot of the lieutenants that were going through the B course that I was sending to Korea. Got to know them and fly with them and had a lot of faith in the future of fighter pilotdom. And then I got to go be their commander a few months later. And a lot of them had extended because they're trying to get through the flight lead upgrade or whatever. It was like a really cool reunion of sorts where I'm the old guy coming in. One thing I realized going to Kunsan was because not a lot of people want to go to Kunsan, it really is like damn near the most old school fighter squadron type experience you can have. I think I was, Gyro was my DO for a while and then changed out to a guy named Houdini, who was a major. I was the only lieutenant colonel. I had a major who was a DO and maybe one major who was an ADO, and everyone else was young captains and lieutenants. And they flew their asses off. And it was amazing. It was the last time in my career, especially coming out of Luke, where it was in that sequestration time frame where not a lot of flying was happening. We got to Korea, and it was not uncommon for young pilots to be flying 8 times a week consistently. And then in exercises, even more than that. And they look back and at a 25 sorties in a month, and they got really good. Their airmanship was incredibly good, much better than mine was when I was their age, because they got to see weather, they got to see strange voices on the radio with accents, they got to see lots of airplanes in condensed places, and a single runway that was always kind of in various stages of construction. Like all of those things were taxiing to hazes when you can only see 10 feet in front of you. That kind of stuff is really good to see as a young pilot, and it only works when you see it in repetition. Being in charge of that at a tactical level was very rewarding, and still being able to hold my own, not to the level of my weapons officers, but I could still out BFM the guys, and I could still drop a better bomb and strafe better, and I still had old man strength. That's right. And could still have credibility. Yeah. So that was the last time in my career where I was like, I still got some credibility here.
I still got this.
I could take these guys north, and it would be great. We're all going to come home. We're going to win. The other thing I learned in command that was really, again, a positive, and by the way, I was not that good. It was just the mission was very straightforward. You had a lot of repetition, and you had a lot of folks that just knew their job really, really well. And that's I would say the easiest thing to command when it comes to just ops, right?
Yeah.
You're damn near everyone has a unified mission. The other cool thing that I finally got to experience was you actually have a responsibility to the lives and well-being of a lot of people and their families. You actually have, it's the last time in my career when I had a direct influence on the careers of folks, and really I would like to think I had a good influence on a lot of them, not everybody. Some probably didn't like me, but I mean, I look back on that. I pushed upgrades really hard. I pushed, work-life balance really hard. And I'm pretty sure all of my lieutenants and captains, with maybe one exception, are weapons officers now. And maybe one or two are test pilot.
That's awesome.
Test pilot grads. And I have a lot of pride in that, because I'd like to think that maybe my job was to help screen them from a lot of the creep so that they could focus on the things that were super important. There were some hiccups along the way. There were some LORs occasionally. I had to do the discipline thing. We got in some shenanigans and trouble, maybe one or two bar fights. But that is when I learned that I think that being an OG would be pretty cool, because just like I was kind of the screen for them to be able to do their job and let their hair down and have fun and also work really hard. I had a really good OG who did the same thing. And that was Red. And a deputy OG, Pistol, who, I mean, yeah, I could have fired myself probably 5 times. You know what I mean? Throughout that year, because it's Kunsan. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything illegal or super dangerous, but you go
fly, you go to the hooch, and like it.
Yeah, and usually nothing bad happens, and occasionally you're TDY somewhere, and someone like throws a punch at one of your folks, and then everyone just jumps into a melee, and you're just like, everyone clear out. Like that happens sometimes, but
sometimes
you when you have a good leadership above you who can keep you in line, tell you where the boundaries are, but if you make a mistake, you learn from it, and they help you learn from it. And that's what I got from my bosses. And that was the time where I'm like, okay, I've always said I'm going to do one more assignment as long as the last one was good, and I think the next one will be good. I could see that as kind of the next step for me, was to, if I could be an OG, maybe I could do that for other people.
Nice. Yeah. And then that's kind of what took you to being the OG at Shaw and kind of running the show of the big Weasel Wing out there. And there were some interesting experiences that happened at Shaw when we were there, just like when you were in Kunsan, kind of talking about it as the airmanship that the dudes develop. But then every year we're absolutely going to war with North Korea for the second time. Almost every nine months to a year is what I found.
That's great.
But then out the doors, like at Shaw, you were sending one of the 3 squadrons, sometimes 2 of the 3 squadrons out the door every 9 months. It seemed like, and going yourself as well. Yeah. So I guess I'll get to that in a second, but I want to give you a lot of credit as a dude, because I had met you previously and we kind of ran in similar circles, I guess. But when I was going to Shaw, I had been out of the jet for 4 years. I had gone to UCOM and done some planning stuff. I did a year at school. I went to the TX and I was like, okay, I can still BFM. I can still land. I don't really know how good all of these kids are these days. And what am I getting into as an OG at the biggest CAF fighter wing, where I was lucky that Maestro hired me. Yeah.
So one of the first people I asked to meet with was you. And we sat in the bar and I was like, tell me everything that sucks, or not that sucks, but everything that is a challenge at a CAF wing. Cause you were I think you were wing weapons at that point, right?
Yep. I was tier 2.
Yeah. That's right. Tell me what is, tell me all about what you think of the big challenges. And if you had a new OG coming in, what should I focus on? And I have notes still somewhere in my things of the things that you said. And I incorporated a lot of that into, not every, some of it was bullshit, but I actually most of it. I was at least self-aware enough to know that I had lost the pulse of the CAF, because I'd been out for a while. I was doing strategery and planning, and I needed to get immersed back into what are the tactical day-to-day things. And one of the big things that I remember you saying was that the basic skills had atrophied in a lot of ways. A lot of the folks coming in just didn't have the baseline of repetitions and the airmanship that they may have in previous years for a lot of reasons that we could get into. And that I think confirmed a lot of my suspicions. I had certainly seen a little bit of that when I was still flying at Luke. It was just a different jet, older jet, different folks coming in, more diverse missions, difficult to keep up with all of it. And I think with sequestration and all the following years of trying to get back to it, there was a lot of risk, airmanship risk primarily. And that became kind of like my number one thing when I was there, is how do we like bolster airmanship the best we can, acknowledge that the weapons officers, like I was at the previous time, want to be all complex and take down China as a two-ship, but how do we make sure we manage our gas, don't run into each other, build a foundation of airmanship on people so that by the time they do have the skills to really tactically execute the complex level of things, they're not running out of gas, they're not scaring themselves, they're actually able to get to the push on time, they're managing their gas, all of that kind of stuff. So I remember that conversation pretty vividly. I wonder if you remember it the same way.
You said something
totally different.
I distinctly remember it, and it was one of those where I was. It's kind of one of those things. You at that point in my career, not that you had been aware of this, but at that point, I was just like, a little bit of what are we doing here? It was at the end. It was 2019. The conversation about getting out of Afghanistan was happening. We had already left Iraq, so we were still sending dudes over, and a lot of the stuff of just like, what are we doing? And so but then there was also this big push for us to get into, like, Russia's becoming a bigger threat. China is definitely becoming a bigger threat. So it's just like we had this balance about the low density conflict of CENTCOM, but then preparing for this inevitable massive China fight, and we just were ping-ponging back and forth, and we just didn't have like a purpose, in my opinion. And like that was like, and so there was a lot of days where I'm just like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I don't know what the boss wants. I kind of know what the boss wants me to do, but all those different things, and just you coming in and just again, same thing with the previous with Hack Jackson was you guys trusting that you cared about my opinion, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, these guys at least care about the like what's happening and recognize it as well. So it was a cool conversation, and the fact that we even got to have it was something that was very cool, and I did not forget it, by the way. But I believe most of it was probably some angry yelling at the time of departing. Well, but
that season of my career, I was really good at filtering out that sort of thing, because I was you at some point. Like, what the hell are they doing up there? What the hell's going on? They don't know what the hell I'm dealing with every day. And the stress on the pilots having to go do these 10 different missions without any idea what's expected of the future. And there was also, that was the period where pilots were jumping ship, and they still probably are. Pilot retention was a big deal. So I was also cognizant of that while also not overdoing it. Like, in the end, we had it pretty good. We got the flight fighters. We tried to inject a lot more stability into it. We did a little bit of that, I think, even in my previous flying world, jobs back at Spang, and everyone was trying to get after it, but it was a really turbulent time because of what you said. What is our mission in the F-16 in particular? I had a similar conversation with Hoot, because he was running the weapons school, 16th at the time. Like, what do you see for the vision? And then my put back to him and the weapons school black border patches was, it's really cool that you want to do these super advanced types of things that might work in a fantasy land where F-16s are alone and unafraid doing their mission. And Hoot wasn't like that. I'm just saying, like, in general, there's always this push from the young weapons officers, like, we can do anything. And I get it. Like, you want that carnivore kind of spirit. Yeah. But you also have to acknowledge what is executable. If a dude with, like, my experience is having a hard time remembering the timeline, and I have to do like higher level math to figure out when to turn left or right while I'm under G at night trying to monitor a wingman and not run out of gas or whatever, stay in my block, we're going to have problems. People are going to get overly task saturated or focused on the wrong things, and we're going to feel awful when someone swaps paint. or has an issue. So,
Yeah.
So anyways, I thought it was great. I had a great group of commanders, a great leadership team. It was fantastic working for Maestro. And then Maestro called me. I'm doing my little kind of Whiskey Wednesday or whatever staff meeting with the commanders. And I get the call from Maestro, and he's like, "Hey, man, we're going to need you to deploy in like a week." And I'm like,
"Gonna need you to do that."
I'm like, "Boss, I just got here. I've been here like 2 months or 3 months or whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, it's super important. They need an F-16 ops group, an F-16 pilot to stand up the ops group because, you know, we're standing up this base in a place. I don't know if I can say it, so I just won't. But in the Middle East, building a new unit, and we have to stand it up. It's tent city. It's going to be tent city for a long time, and we're going to start rotating in fighters, and we need someone who can lead that and fly the jets." And I said, "Well, okay." I mean, granted, I had no reason to say no. I just said I haven't deployed in a few years because I had school and staff and FTU kind of job. So I was fully like, it was my time. And at that time, I had 3 kids. They had all endured the year off in Kunsan, so they were just older and got to see it. And honestly, it was supposed to be like a 3-month or 3.5 month surge. And I said, "Put me in, no big deal. I'll see the family sometime in February or whatever." I went over there. We did it. We brought in all the jets. They changed it to not F-16s, so I got to watch Strike Eagles and watch the 494th do great work. They came in during like the Soleimani hit, and we were loading things up and putting helmets on and thinking that it's time to duck and cover. It was actually quite a rewarding time to be in command in a combat kind of environment, even though I didn't get to fly.
Yeah.
I got 1 hour in the back of the Strike Eagles, so that's cool. And then eventually Vipers came, the Nichols showed up. I got to fly with them for like 6 weeks. They had a tough time. I don't know if you know that period of time under Snuff. Former name I won't say who I knew him as, but Snuff. They got moved all over the AOR, back to Italy and back again. And I mean, that was a leadership challenge as well, just helping him lead that squadron through that really tough time while COVID was going on. Because that all happened around the time that COVID hit. And I mean, I got extended like everybody indefinitely. I ended up being there over 7 months, almost 8 months. Through the COVID thing where we're figuring out how to build a prison cell for the people coming in and quarantine people and how to contain outbreaks of the COVID and all this stuff. But all the time continuing to fly, and I got to fly some combat sorties again, which is kind of cool. I was lucky to do that. And then finally came back to Shaw for basically a full year of OG after being gone essentially that first year. Still fortunate to be able to do it. No regrets.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, not to I'm going to kind of shift gears here, but like throughout all this career, hundreds of combat hours, command experiences, weapons school, legislative liaison, Pentagon stuff, UCOM stuff, all this different stuff. Everyone also knows you as the guy who's in Dos Gringos. So you said you started playing.
I'm not familiar. What are you talking about?
Okay, like for the listeners that may not know who Dos Gringos is or what Dos Gringos is, like when I got to actually like meet Trip, first off, he was the squadron commander of the Kunsan squadron. And I was like, you're telling me that the squadron commander, who I'm calling Sir right now, is the Dos Gringos guy. And I didn't know that. And I didn't necessarily know that because I was late to the F-16. But for those out there, Dos Gringos is like kind of the anthem of the squadron bar. Like all the songs are like the anthems of the squadron bar. It's always playing in the background, all this different stuff. You said you started kind of playing early on in your career. First off, how did it start? And then how did this kind of, I assume it started as a hobby, like take on kind of a life of its own, and how has it kind of gone, and where is it now?
So
have you always been musically inclined?
I would say I grew up, my mom was a piano teacher. My dad played guitar and bass, and there was always guitars laying around. He taught me some chords and some scales, and And then I just picked it up and learned how to mimic Slash and Eddie Van Halen, watching MTV. Did my best there. Oh, I was in bands and stuff in high school. And again, this is like not the typical upbringing of someone who's going to go fly in the Air Force.
100%.
I was kind of like, I like to rock and roll, and my hair was kind of stupid looking, and I just like to be in bands. But I continue to play because I just have always had a passion for music. I've always loved it, all kinds of music. And I had some ability because I grew up in a musical family. It's in the genes to some degree. And I took that with me through my military career. And then I got to Cannon. I had played music, but other than learning fighter pilot songs as a requirement of the B course, where you had to entertain the squadron with a new song every week or whatever, I didn't know much about it. I never brought my guitar to the squadron in the B course or anything, but I got to Cannon, and my sponsor was a guy named Snooze. And when I got to Cannon, he was actually doing one of those Noble Eagle deployments where he wasn't there. He's in a trailer on 10-minute alert or whatever after 9/11. And I called him. I'm like, hey, I'm here. Where should I live? And like, does it suck this bad really all the time? And he was like, I'll just have to talk to you when I get back. And I was like, that guy's kind of a jerk. He's not very nice at all. And then I met him in person, and I realized he's actually like one of the best people I know. And like he's like a brother. Yeah. And we started talking about music, and I said, hey, I play guitar. He's like, oh, so do I. Well, maybe we should do that together sometime because it's Cannon, and what else are we going to do? So we started playing, and he started showing me some of these songs that he had written. When he was in the B course, he wrote Two's Blind, and I think he wrote The Wingman as a B courser. Can you imagine being in a fighter squadron at an FTU or RTU, and this brand new punk comes in and he's like, I hear your songs from Vietnam. They're fine. What about this? And he just starts playing these songs. So once he learned that I play guitar and I learned some of his songs, we started writing songs together. And it just became a squadron and then a wing thing only. We'd bring our guitars on Nellis things, or we brought them on deployment. We played at the Sand Trap whenever we could, between sorties, when there were people before the surge and things started getting really heated with all the Scud attacks and Mop 4 stuff. We would still play, and we would write songs over there and playing for the squadron, playing for the maintainers, playing for other squadrons that would come in, and it just became a fun, entertaining thing. When we got back, we recorded in Lubbock, Texas, an album. We had accumulated enough songs that we had written, the songs that he started with, and we just some of them were inside jokes, some of them were not as good as others, but we had a few $100 and we went to Lubbock and found some dude in a warehouse with an Apple computer and a couple microphones. And most of the things that you hear on that first album are just one take live. When you hear a group of people screaming or saying Fox 2, that's all of our squadron bros and sisters coming out, drove out to Lubbock and went and we're like, hey, say this. And they just live around the microphone screaming things. And then a couple of them we dabbled in trying to like produce a real song with different tracks and drums. But those aren't the ones that people care about. It's the ones that were just a guitar, an idea, a funny set of lyrics, and things that you could, remember and sing along with your friends. That make fun of ourselves. In the end, that was kind of a core tenet. It's self-deprecating. I think a good fighter pilot is always humble and self-deprecating, and also credible, as we know the mantra goes. But I think music was just another kind of extension of that. Let's do things that are fun, that build morale, that make us laugh at ourselves, take the edge off, especially when you can't have a drink after getting shot at.
Exactly.
We at least can laugh and make fun of each other. And then a lot of really magical things happened after that, I would say. This was, if you remember, the early 2000s, I mean, people still bought CDs, right? That was like how you got music together. So we pressed hundreds of these freaking CDs, and we're just thinking, we'll just hand them out to our friends, maybe try to recoup some costs, sell them for $5, $10. And we started getting requests in our work emails. It started to spread, and they were like, "Can I order one?" And so we started like shipping them to people, totally breaking all the rules, doing business on a government computer. And then it just started to get viral. And before we knew it, we had sold like 1,000 of these freaking things.
Yeah.
So we recorded another one.
Yeah.
And that one was at a bigger studio. That was called 2. That was when Snooze had gone to Moody to teach IFF. I think at the time I was at Luke flying the RTU. And then we recorded that one over the course of about a week, which was super fun. And then we did the live one right after I graduated weapons school. We did a live show in Vegas, and that was super fun with a whole band, and all the folks showed up at Tommy Rockers. And that was awesome. And then I went to the staff, and we really got serious with El Cuatro. We had done a lot of shows, by the way. We got to tour around and play a lot of interesting places. Remarkably, the only trouble we ever got in early in our career was at Cannon when we were singing Sammy Smalls, which isn't even our song. And the wing commander's wife, or the vice wing commander's wife, got super mad at us. And we got in a lot of trouble. Like a Monday morning pilot meeting, stand up for the whole wing, where we're just getting, not by name, but these 2 pilots are blah, blah, blah. Terrible people. They have talent, but they lack judgment, is what I'll never forget. So we got banned from the O Club, and then the whole squadron burned their O Club cards into like this big mass of like molten plastic. And no one in our squadron ever went to the O Club again out of solidarity, which I think is very special. And then we did El Cuatro, which was a super fun thing. We started to learn more about recording and production. A lot of the tracks you hear on that were just me recording in my basement with like building the tracks and then sending it to the studio, and Snooze doing his parts with me and him working together, adding studio drummers, like really good humans who play real music, and then producing what we think was pretty cool for, again, a fairly shoestring budget. And then this shit hit the fan, man. Like Shawgate, that shut things down for a while. We went underground and kind of didn't want to get anyone in trouble or fired. I thought I was done. And look, admittedly, there's some songs that probably went too far. There's definitely songs out there that have gone way too far, and they're, we had there was a course correction needed. But I mean, they did an interview on CNN about us. They're calling us pornographers, and I'm just like, I called the JAG, or the lawyer at the base. I'm like, they're saying I'm a pornographer. Am I a pornographer? He's like, no. It turns out you could be. It's totally illegal. I'm like, really?
Still would be illegal. I mean, it's frowned upon in this establishment.
As long as you're not wearing your uniform while making said pornography. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. But we definitely throttled back and kind of went way underground for a while. I didn't play. I focused elsewhere, and honestly, that's
you guys disappeared for you. It was noticed in the younger. I'm not going to age you. I'm not going to age you. I'm not going to do it. I was like, but it was noticed in the younger. I'm
almost 50 years old now.
Yeah, me too. But it was noticed in the younger fighter pilot community when you guys went underground for a while.
Well, part of me hoped that someone would fill the gap, but I was happy that no one did, because they would have just ended their career. It was a really tough period of time where it was probably good that we all just kind of took a step back and were like, okay, maybe we should just cool things off for a little bit, preserve the things that we want to preserve, and we can live without some of the things that we might have grown up with. And I actually don't think that was a terrible thing. I think they went too far in a lot of areas, of course, taking nose art from World War II history off of posters like that. Okay. But we decided, all right, we still have all this creative energy. We still want to do things that are music related. So me and Snooze and another close friend of mine who I actually in business with, also from college, Easy, we created a veteran nonprofit, veteran support organization called Operation Encore. So I'm like a walking billboard, man. Hope you noticed.
I did. But
so
no,
Operation Encore, we're like,
I'm all for shout outs.
Yeah. Cool. OperationEncore.org. Anyways, what we decided is, all right, if we can't do the funny kind of, drinking music, Tenacious D style stuff that we've been doing for the last, 15 years almost. Let's channel that energy to something that is still cool, but in a different way. So we created Operation Encore initially just as a record label where we gave all the proceeds to the artists. We didn't want to make any money. We came out of pocket a lot, right? We just wanted to get veterans who wrote music chances to record in a professional studio. And we did that. We made 2 albums. We transitioned to a nonprofit, and we're still alive today. We've got over
That's
40
awesome.
artists that we give opportunities to veterans, families of veterans, folks who occasionally some active duty folks still, but it's tough to do it. We put them in live music opportunities. We've had artists play at Newport Folk Fest across the bay here. We've had artists open for big acts, and they go to songwriting retreats with famous songwriters, and we give them opportunities to record professionally. So that's pretty cool. We make videos, that kind of cool stuff. So we're still active on the board there. Me, Snooze, my buddy Easy, and a couple other folks who you probably know are involved in that too, like T-Bone Abbott and Spec and a bunch of guys that you've had beers with them.
Yeah. Well, and so kind of with the band and stuff like that, you said that you started getting emails at your work email. Like, at what point did you kind of sit back as a F-16 pilot and just be like, okay, holy shit, this is actually a real thing and this is getting big? Like, was there a defining moment that you can distinctly remember?
I would say there was first defining moment there was a couple on the deployment. The first one was at the end of the deployment. We're about to leave. This is when I'm a brand new captain after OIF 1, the war, right? And we had this big, let's have a barbecue with all the maintainers that kept all the jets in the air for this 6-month deployment or whatever. And we had written, I'm a pilot, in our room between missile attacks or whatever. And so we had played it just for the pilots, and we thought it was funny. And then we're like, should we play this song for all the maintainers? And I was actually they might think we're making fun of them. I don't want them to think that. I hope they realize we're making fun of ourselves. We went back and forth, and I think Snooze was like, yeah, we gotta play it. So we did, and they loved it, right? They realized they got the joke, of course, right? They're smart. They're not going to think, oh, you guys are assholes. They, when I saw hundreds of maintainers and pilots from all the squadrons out in the middle of the desert, just kind of erupting in laughter and digging it, I was like, okay, this is more than just us playing for our friends. And then when we started, probably a few years later, we did a couple of shows that were probably big ones for us. We played at the Hard Rock in Vegas. Hundreds of people showed up for that one because it was during a red flag. It's okay, this is real. We played in Europe at a couple things for NATO places, Germany and et cetera, a couple places there. And there's just tons of Germans all over and Dutch folks. And they were singing along to all the songs. That's when I knew it was getting pretty big. And then when I would get emails from Poland, some random pilot of some place, I'm like, how did you hear about this? Well, it turns out once people stopped buying CDs, they started just burning them and sending them on, to their friends, MP3s. And that's when it became really hard to make money selling music and making music, which we never really made a ton of money. But, it was it became clear to me once music became a viral thing that you could share. And then after it became streaming, that this is here to stay. Until we get replaced by robots, people still like to listen to silly music,
which is pretty funny. I will say, I know I don't even want to I almost don't even want to bring this up, but there was when you and Maestro were the two guys at Shaw. I may or may not have told the homies. I was just all right, you're all gonna get one. I was you're all gonna get one with these two. I was you're gonna get one. I was you just get. Just trust me on this one. Yeah. These two are awesome humans. I was we can be fighter pilots a little bit because it was coming out of Shawgate. And I just go, don't do anything ridiculous. I was but these two, just a little bit more than others, are going to understand. Maybe a second, maybe a third chance. So. And then how did you balance being a commander and all this different stuff, and then kind of having that? Did it ever become? I mean, you said people, I mean, you got called a pornographer, but like, did it ever actually become
Yeah,
like
that
a
was
real
earlier.
problem? Yeah.
It never really did. And when that came out, and I was a DO at Luke, I called my OG. There's another example of a good OG
Yeah.
just taking care of his people, right? I was like, well, it was a good run. I think I'm done. I'm in the paper or whatever. And he's like, just relax. It's going to be fine. I was like, are you sure? And I had a wing commander that was cool at the time too, Skeeter. Like they realized, look, everybody grew up with a certain established set of rules of what was okay. And now the rules have shifted again. It doesn't mean we have to turn everything off. It just means you got to adjust for products of the society that we serve. Like you can't just right to the end, grease your way right to the merge and take one in the face. You got to like adjust your tactics sometimes, right?
Yep.
And so I think that was a valuable lesson for me. We stayed true to the core of what we do, which is don't take yourself too seriously. Don't be a jerk. Don't make anyone feel like an outcast in your squadron. It should be, everyone should be, if they're in your unit, they should feel like they're part of the unit. And if you're doing things that make them feel like they're not part of the unit, then that's a problem with you and it's not with them, usually. Like sometimes people have like really thin skin or whatever, but you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It should be coming from like a good place, a positive place. And that's kind of what guided me. And when I asked to go to Shaw, because I wanted to work for Maestro, of course. And then like some of the stuff resurfaced. And I said, Maestro, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to work for you now. I don't think they're going to want to have both of us in the same place. And again, another example of a commander just taking care of things and being cool and calm and collected and facing the challenges head on, saying, no, we're going to get through this. It's going to be fine. And you're going to be the OG at Shaw. And I was very fortunate to be able to work for that guy, even for a short time, because he continued. And so did Hack, as the guy that helped pull me in.
Absolutely.
Like really helped work that out. And it was awesome. And it's not like I went to Shaw and I was just like the Dos Gringos guy. Honestly, it came up sometimes.
Yeah.
But even at that stage, not to deter anyone who wants to be an OG, when you become the old guy on the base, it doesn't matter if your history, like you were the funniest dude in the world, or you were the best captain in the world, or you were a kick-ass mayor back in the day, or you played funny fighter pilot songs. When you walk into the bar, you change the dynamic, and you know that you're there for a specific period of time. You hang out with the folks, the bros, the sisters, and you say like, this is great, have fun, I'm going to leave now. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. So it's not like they said, oh, come on in, we're going to sing the song, here's a guitar. That would have been weird for them. It would have been weird for me. Like It never really got to that point. And I always appreciated that, because then they knew where I was coming from. They knew I would take care of them. They knew that there were rules of things that they should do in this day and age and what they can't do. And I was very clear on that stuff. They knew what my priority was again, I want you to be the airman. I want you to have airmanship. I want you to be ready to go fight. And part of that is the culture that I helped to be part of at some point in my career. And I'm continuing to try to help bring along, just like you guys are.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be the drunk dude in the squadron participating in the shenanigans. Yeah. That's your job.
Yeah, that's exactly. So what was did you have, I know I've been to a show where Dos Gringos played, and like, what was like the coolest show that you have ever done? Either a massive one or like a very small one or anything like that. But what would you say is like the coolest one you guys have gotten to do over your career? Putting you on the spot.
Man, I should be more ready for this one. Let me think about that. I think we played some of the best quality stuff at that live show, at the one that we recorded. And that was a really fun one. It was at a point in my life, I had just gotten my weapons school. Like I just got patched, and like I'm with one of my best friends, my family, my wife's there. Like we're just like, it was really a cool moment. I would say one of the coolest shows we ever did was at this bar in Rostock, Germany. We played there twice, called the Schomar. It's like a bar, just like we talked about. Everyone wants to open a bar. Not everyone has the actual stones to do it. Well, these folks were retired MiG-29 pilots and maybe some Eurofighter pilots. I'm not sure. But they opened a aviation-themed bar that's really cool. And we went and played a whole band. The whole band was there. Me and Snooze and Cheech and Limey. And we played a really fun show for a bunch of just like kick-ass German Air Force folks, Luftwaffe folks. That was awesome. Very memorable. And then I guess I would say, I've been very lucky. I've played a lot of shows where I'm like, it doesn't get any better than that. Yep. And I don't want to make anyone think that the show I played when they were there, it wasn't super awesome. Because
every show was the best
awesome.
Show.
I'll tell you, ironically, one of the worst shows I ever played was at the Nellis O Club bar at a Red Flag. And it was after people knew who we were and we were pretty famous. And what I realized was we're not that important. We're not as awesome as we think we are. We're there playing in the corner and no one's listening. They just want to like talk about flying and see their friends and be like, oh, dude, we also kicked ass and you also sucked. And we're there playing our music and no one's listening except for like, one guy from the comm squadron who happened to sneak in. And like, we're like, what are we doing here? Let's see that. And maybe there are a couple others that I've done since I retired that they're pretty amazing. I don't know if you know Kid and like Rook Isaacman and the guys that went to space. Yeah. The civilians that went to space. We raised a bunch of money for St. Jude's. They asked us to play at this kind of training thing that they did in Montana prior to going up into space. So me and Snooze and the band, like T-Bone Abbott, Speckard, and just a whole group. It was awesome. And we got to play in a hangar with like, all these airplanes flying around for this group that was about to go actually up into space and all their family and friends. That was a pretty cool one.
How does the style of music of Dos Gringos play to like the non-pilot crowd or non-aviation crowd? Have you ever played in any of those kind of crowds?
Yeah, there's a few songs that are good, like that have nothing to do with flying, that are funny and have enough bad words to where it gets someone's attention and it rhymes with something. They're like, I'm going to laugh because that was a bad word and that's funny. But I would say most of the time when we play, most of the crowd knows who we are. And then the folks who don't, if they stick with it, they see the people laughing and then they whisper like, what the hell does that mean? And they tell them and they're like, oh, that's funny. So that is typically our experience.
Yeah.
When I get the alternate reaction, it's like one of two things. And this happened like 3 days ago too. Someone will introduce me like, oh, this is Trip. He used to fly F-16s. And then it's always the same thing. Like, you might think that's cool, but he's actually not that cool. The only thing that makes him cool is that he plays guitar in Dos Gringos or whatever. And then I get one reaction. Sometimes it's like, oh, that's amazing. I played this for my priest and my rabbi and my children. And like, and then the other one is, oh, and then they don't make eye contact. And I'm just like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry you played it out loud in front of children.
Apologies. Like your kids are in their car seats and it's in the mix. I understand. I will tell you a couple of cool shows we've done because of the, as I think we talked already, we started a whiskey company, Winglore Spirits, recently, a couple years ago. And we're part of this really cool team that's trying to do something that, again, ties the good parts of our culture together. And one of the things that I think is fun about that is we bring the band out, and me and Snooze and the band, T-Bone, Spec, all of them, will come out and we'll play. Bono plays drums with us most recently. Most of those dudes, I think.
I do.
And we've gotten to play some really cool shows, man. Like we played most recently at Tailhook, and all the Navy folks, they know all of our stuff, and they don't quite use the same words all the time, but they appreciate it. We played at Tailhook 20 years ago, just me and Snooze with our acoustic guitars in one of the little rooms in Reno, and that went great when we were first getting big-ish. And then we come back 20 years later, look exactly the same, probably more handsome. And all the young kids just loved it. It's just like re-energizing, when you're old, to see that. So we got to do that show. We did a really big thing at a place called Flight Co. It's a brewery / restaurant at the old Air Tower in Denver. And they have a really cool facility. About 400 people showed up for that. We got to share the whiskey and some music and do a tasting. That was super fun. And then we really launched at Atomic Liquors in April of this year with a kick-ass. It was just like a really cool venue outside on Fremont at night. Hundreds of people there singing along. We had a couple of young GWOTs who are F-35 dudes that you probably know. They opened for us, played some like Jimmy Buffett style music with their own words, which is fun, kind of like parody songs. And that was just like a legendary night for us because we got to all get together, and this whiskey thing has given us a really cool venue to get out there and play and have a lot of people show up. And it's been awesome.
No, I love it. Like it's funny because obviously other than just getting to catch up and hang out and chat with you is I have found kind of going through this career is that there is certain things that have been part of fighter pilot culture throughout the whole thing, and whether like starting a whiskey company or anything like that, for all the people out there that think that just like drinking is a huge part of fighter pilot culture, while it is, and I enjoy it and have drank booze with Trip a couple times, it's one of those things of just like being able to kind of wind down and have an informal kind of conversation in the bar after a sortie, and like being able to sit there and just be like, hey, you're in this super high stress situation the majority of your day. Okay, I just debriefed you. We all talked about all the things we fucked up. Let's go and have a drink and get the culture back and kind of wind down for the night and really get the good learning going kind of into that. And how you've done that with both, and then fighter pilot songs have been a thing since the dawn of aviation. Of just singing singing these songs that are just about our life, and they're hilarious and dark at times. But like as you have chosen kind of with your contribution to that culture has been, in my opinion, pretty wild and really cool. And I love to see that you're doing that and kind of bringing it back. And then also, I just like that dudes are successful and want to start businesses. So you're doing that, and kind of with Winglore, and why'd you choose that? And like, tell me about it. Like, what's the day to day? Like, do you have a distillery? How do you do it?
Sure. Well, I have a day job that occupies most of my life. But at nights and weekends and early mornings, I'm part of a really cool team that created this company called Winglore Spirits. A couple of other guys, you can learn about it you can read more about us and stuff on the website, winglorespirits.com. And our CEO is Carlos Howard. He actually is a retired Marine Hornet pilot, prior enlisted infantry dude, went to the Hornet. And when I was about transitioning out of the Air Force, retiring, I'd gone to like a startup and I was still trying to figure out my life. He reached out to me on LinkedIn. He's like, hey, I'm doing this thing you might be interested in. He knew me because of the music, not because I'm a swell guy. It was, again, because of the dirty music. And I said, dude, I'm like really busy. I don't think I have time for another thing right now, but let's maybe talk a little later. In the meantime, me and my other buddy, Easy, who I've known since college, we had talked about resurrecting Jeremiah Weed. He's a C-17, C-5 type pilot. And we're not the only ones. Like, we were humble enough to know that this wasn't just our idea. Everybody was like, let's do this. It's not in production anymore. Let's do it. We did a lot of research on it, had some meetings, talked to the big company that owns it, which I won't say because I don't want to get sued. But we quickly found that it would be a heavy lift to start making it and to do it potentially. And then in the end, you're not going to sell that much because it doesn't taste good. And we decided maybe we'll put that off. When Carlos called me, he and another guy, Stroke, had started down a lot of this path to create something that it brings together our culture with ultra premium spirits. not the stuff that you put sugar in and you give to someone when they screw up as a penalty, but something that, to your point earlier, after a stressful mission, you want to enjoy something that tastes really good, that has some complexity, that's like interesting and high quality while you're with your friends. And you want to be able to, it's not about like, oh, I got to talk about everything about this whiskey and I'm going to sit here by myself and just love every second of it.
Yeah.
Yes, you can do that. It's that good. I'm biased, but it is that good. But more importantly, you want to enjoy it as a community. And we wanted to build a community brand. So we joined forces. Carlos is a 8 Hornet dude from the Marines. Stroke's a reservist Strike Eagle dude who had transitioned out into full-time for us, and now he's in another position. And then Easy and me. And we decided, let's start a company and actually make this happen. And that's what we've been doing over the last 2 years plus. Carlos, our CEO, was so dedicated to the brand that about 3 months into our initial conversations of how we would do this, he stopped answering my calls and texts. And I said, shit, I guess he doesn't want to do this anymore. Crap, we were about to like do this amazing thing. I was like, dude, it's okay. I get it. We'll go do our thing. You do your thing. He texted me this article about how a Draken pilot had ejected on the ground in Cherry Point. And that was him. So like he was that close to death. He texted me back. He's like, yeah, I broke my back, my neck, everything. I'm a mess. But the good news is I'll have plenty of time to work on Winglore. And that actually happened. No shit. And we just went off to the races. We built this because I mean, I don't know about you. I know you're an entrepreneur and you think about things like this a lot. There's something that's always drawn me toward building things and creating and solving problems that other people haven't solved yet and figuring out how to make money doing it. So I have a lot of these little things in my life. But this one's particularly interesting because it pulls together the things that I love. It's like, I do like a good glass of whiskey. I like the people and our culture. And it even lets me pull in the music, which is a really cool part to this whole thing. And in the end, like I spent my life making PowerPoints and like flying sorties and not creating anything physical. Well, now like we have a product that started in our heads and now you can buy it. That is super cool to me.
That's
I actually don't care what it is. It's like amazing to be able to be like, we made this. It's really good. We get great feedback. We actually sold out of one of the types of whiskey, the American single malt, way faster than we expected. And like we blew out of the water all of the projections from all these marketing companies and fulfillment companies we work with, to the point where we like broke the fulfillment system because we have this really cool community of folks that know us. They know we're not going to produce crap, and they are drawn to this culture and this really cool thing that's aviation inspired.
And also like, again, not trying to just kind of blow smoke or anything like that, but that also we support each other. That's also part of the community and part of the culture is that I always have found it ridiculous that Rain has asked me to do this with him. And I think when it like I got to do, I don't know if you watched it. I still can't believe anybody watches this stuff, but like getting to do like the Weasel series that I got to do. That was just as cool for me as it was for anybody else. Like I just got to sit and talk to weasels from Vietnam to now over like 14 hours and stuff like that. But people watch this stuff and people listen and they support. And just like your whiskey is, people are going to like, they want to support you. And it's a cool thing you're doing, like as far as just like bringing the culture and the community back kind of into it. And again, it's not like even trying to like go out and sell stuff to make money, as like it's a nice byproduct of being able to do that. But overall, it's like, hey, I'm doing this because I think it's cool and it brings people together. And that's what it
always has to start with that, right? Like the stuff that you guys do on Afterburn, and I've talked to Rain about this, it's kind of the gap that you guys are filling is like you're preserving history, right? you're talking to these folks that have these cool
Yeah.
experiences, and it's always going to be there. So if I said something stupid in the last hour, it's always going to be there. My kids and my grandkids are going to get to see this. Not that this is a history, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have the
It's history for
opportunity
me.
to pull that out. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I don't know if you sell anything or with this or
Not
there's
really.
advertising or whatever, but
Not really.
I mean, I agree that yeah, it doesn't matter. And by the way, this whiskey thing, yeah, it's a business. We're in it. Like we're in financially, and we're doing it because we think it can grow and make
Yeah.
a lot of money and touch a lot of folks. But we wouldn't do it if we weren't passionate about the product and about the culture. And it kind of starts there. So I definitely don't want anyone to think that we're trying to like exploit the culture and like try to sell
No.
booze or whatever. But go out and buy our freaking whiskey.
I'm okay with that. And yeah, no, I'm good with it. And again, I
And
just
also,
think
if
it's cool.
people want to be owners, this is another cool thing. So to do this, you've run businesses and started things. You got to have a lot of money. So we raised a ton. And to your point earlier, it's folks that want to support us, and they gave us a lot of money, like $1 million, of a lot of folks. And I said, I don't want you to give me your money unless you're cool that if I lose it, you're still going to want to hang out and be friends. And they're all like, yes, this is super cool. We want to do it. So we stopped that at about $1 million with big investors, right? Like accredited big investors. And then we went to this program, this platform called Net Capital, which you can look it up and get to it from our website. What we wanted to do there was give the opportunity for a lieutenant and a captain or whatever, someone who is not like a accredited investor, to kick in $100 and be like, I'm an owner of a whiskey company. I got my owner coin. I own it. Like this is mine. And impress the ladies with the fact that that's your whiskey. And like we think it's way cooler if we have like hundreds of owners who can be like, yeah, we're all like owners in this super cool whiskey company.
I own a whiskey company.
I think that's super fun. We don't necessarily need it. It's just like a fun way for us to like crowdsource it and bring in as many folks as possible so that they can be part of it and feel some kind of like vested interest in it.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And I think with Trip's permission, I think when this publishes, we're going to put a promo code in the comments, and you guys can go out there and use that, and we'll partner up, and because I'm going to support you. I like whiskey, I drink it, so we'll do that. If that's cool with you, you guys can check out the comments and get that promo code. That would be great. And we'll definitely send you some whiskey for sure, Flash and Rain. I think that if you like that sort of thing, I do. I do. In fact, yes, I know. I think it's just like all part of the fun. And as I got to the end of my career, I realized that there were parts of the culture that I was still resonated with, and I still felt like I was part of. And then there was part of the culture that like I didn't get all the jokes anymore. A lot of memes, a lot of stuff that didn't really make sense to me. And that showed me that like I'm a different part of my life. It's time to go out and do some other things. But what I found with this project is that it's brought me back to the cool parts of the thing, that this culture that resonates with everybody from the young to the old. It's getting together, having a really good drink with your friends and just talking shit. Like to me, that's that really encapsulates a lot of what I liked about the career. And when it's aviation inspired and you can tie some silly music to it, it's only that much better. We're doing all those things. So as we kind of get to the end with this, I kind of posed the question to you pre-production or whatever, but you got any last words that you want to impart on the masses, or if there was one thing that you would do to change the world, if you were king for the day or had all the money and all the authority of the world to change either the military or aviation culture or anything like that, what are the last, like some parting words from Trip? Yeah. Look, I don't have any words of wisdom really that will be an epiphany for anyone. I'll just tell you that the guiding principle in my life, there's probably two things that have not steered me wrong. And I'm not the first one to have step one or rule one be don't be a dick. Like that's step one. And then, I think step two is just don't take yourself too seriously.
you're not as good as you think you are. You can always get better. And to that point, if there were no rules, or I could just dictate anything for the fighter pilots that get to fly airplanes, it's not feasible, and it's frankly impossible. We can't afford it. But back to the time where we sat in the bar and talked, and kind of my upbringing doing a lot of instruction, I don't care how threatening we think the enemy is. I don't care how badass we think their airplanes are. It's not going to be technology that solves it for us. It's going to be folks who are comfortable in stressful situations making really difficult life death decisions built on habit patterns. So I really do think that I come back to it again. It was a guiding tenet of my command, which is build airmanship. If you can build that foundation of airmanship, build people who can think on their feet, give them the reps with the smell of jet fuel and actual G's and actual airplane, interesting things that happen in the real air, you can build on that. You can't start with technology and simulation and go back to the difficult things of combat. So I guess that's a long way of saying it sure would be nice if everybody could fly every day something, a real thing, get some air under their ass, a real thing. It doesn't have to be a complex mission. They just need to go through the motions so that they're comfortable being uncomfortable. That is how you build, in my opinion, in my career, that's how you build the best pilots, and that's how you win. So I hope we can get there someday.
I agree.
It's going to be tough.
I agree with you. So, well, Trip, man, I really appreciate having this conversation. We'll call it an episode for the day, but thank you again so much.
Right.
And for your entire career, you had a hell of a career, and best of luck for all the other things you're looking to do. And I think I speak for a lot of people that say, again, whether you knew it or not, I think you do, but the contributions that you made to the culture of being a fighter pilot with Dos Gringos is pretty substantial, and it's a really cool thing. And I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you kind of took that risk, and you're taking more risk with the business world. So thanks for doing it. And again, really appreciate the time talking to you.
Thanks, Flash. Echo the same right back at you. Super impressed with everything you've accomplished. And thanks for letting me be on the podcast. Huge fan, and I hope we can get together in person and share a beverage one of these days.
Would love to do it. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Like, subscribe, comment, all this other stuff. Go buy some Winglore whiskey or anything like that. And we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.
Whatever, on target.